What do you do with Gable Stevenson? I got to tell you, I have been pulled aside. I have been called. I've had more conversations criticizing Gable Stevenson's management. And they've lured me into these conversations. Can you believe the way they're managing him? Boy, this guy, he must have bad management. I'm sure if you were his manager, you wouldn't have done what they did. I keep having these conversations, and do you guys feel that way? Because I feel the opposite. I feel like this has been amazing. I'd have liked to have seen him do the Craig Jones thing. There was something very cool, right? The Craig Jones, that he's going to go out and grapple, but he's going to do with the submissions against the best in the world, the best wrestler in the world versus the best. I liked that match. Knowing that 2 weeks later, he was going to do bare-knuckle. Like, for me, that covers everything, and I don't know of anybody that's got that kind of courage. The reason it's never been done before, in my opinion, is because there was nobody with that level of courage. So, I mean, literally on the Craig Jones, Gable is going to take 90% of his weapons, and he's got to leave them in the back, right? 90% of what he knows how to do is to take somebody down. In this atmosphere, you don't get anything for that. Then in bare knuckle, he's going to take 100% of his qualities that he's learned his entire life, and he's going to leave those in the back. And that's fascinating to me. Then all of a sudden, he does the mixed rules match and the MMA, and he's doing them quickly. He's got everybody's focus and everybody's attention. So what do? You just bring him right to the UFC. If you bring him to the UFC, do you go right for a title? Because see, that always seems to be the problem. The UFC always appears to be a little bit of a slower ride than it should be. I mean, we're able to look at guys and see how good they are. The rankings committee, for example, would not put Gable Stevenson in the top 15. But if you pulled any one of them aside and said, hey, do you really think there's 15 guys under contract that can beat him? They'd say no. No, of course not. No, I bet he's a top 5 right now. You'll have other people that have the power to vote in the rankings committee go, no, I think he could be the world champion right now. I think he can beat Cyril Gane and beat Pavlich right now. Okay, great. Why didn't you rank him? Well, he hasn't fought yet. And you always run into this weird game. So then even when you get the right guy and you know that he's the right guy, well, we've got to build him. Now, in the history of fighting, nobody's ever built anybody. You can't give me an example of somebody that was built. But there's a lot of examples where you're going in a direction with two athletes and you were trying and you were matched up certain ways and you were going to try to get them together. But somewhere, whether it was the semifinal round or the quarterfinal round or the preliminary round, one of them goes down and gets beat. And it turns out he's the best fighter in the world. He's got to go get a whole nother path, and eventually he comes in and does capture his championship, but you didn't get the match. I believe it's a little bit different. One of my premier rules of thought, get the fight to the ring. If you've got the right two athletes, get them in the ring. We'll worry about everything else later. He shouldn't be there, and he's ranked this, and his mother loved him more, and he's got a 7 next to his name, and this guy's got a 12, and this match doesn't make sense. Get them in the ring. Then it'll just has a way of all working itself out. And that's the one thing where I have a little bit of pause with Gable and putting him in the UFC. He's done 3 fights in the last 6 weeks. If he goes in the UFC, in a best case scenario, he will do 3 fights in 12 months. Now, is there any way to fast track that? I love what they did with Bo, if you guys will recall. Bo Nickal was a dominant wrestler. He looked like $1 million. He didn't have a lot of experience. They put him on Contender Series. Everybody's watching him. They don't give him a contract. In fact, they make him come back and do another Contender Series. But with an obvious agreement that if you do look good, which means a finish of any kind, you will for sure get the contract. You're not on the same cutting edge as everybody else, and that seemed to be pretty fair. Oh, by the way, the ratings for that specific Contender Series still hold Contender Series record ratings. Bo comes right into the UFC. He gets in what turns out to be the future world champion, a back and forth with Dricus du Plessis all over card placement, but Bo finds himself on a main card, getting main card attention, and he wouldn't have gotten that if he had not done 2 trips through the Contender Series. That was the distinction. That was the storyline. That's what had never been done before. Lots of guys do the Contender Series. Bo had 2 trips through the Contender Series. Bo got his name out there and got his recognition and got more headlines in that second trip through Contender Series. This is just the way the story works. So what would you do with Gable? If you're not quite ready to bring him to the UFC, now there's not going to be a big bidding war, by the way. I mean, if somebody else would like to have Gable, you can have a Gable. Go ahead. Having a Gable, it just doesn't do anything for you if you don't have somebody to fight Gable. A Gable would be a great service to the PFL if Francis would fight him, for example. But if Gable's going to come over to the UFC and it's going to be a slow build, oh, by the way, the champion of the world is Gable's cornerman who's openly saying, I'm not ever going to face him. Now, we've got a little bit of a problem. You're in many ways better to take that guy and let him go somewhere else. You can't have both. You can't look me in the eye and tell me that you are sacrificing, you will do anything to be world champion. You will not take an opportunity to be world champion if it's against that guy. They just don't work. You either want to be champion or not. And there's nothing disrespectful about it. Nobody's going to bring you in on day one and put you against John anyway. Like the reality of this happening isn't there. We just need to know in a hypothetical situation, if it were there, what would you say? And if your answer is no, we've got a problem. It can be worked with. It's not the first time. It's not a new problem. But it's a problem. And I don't question Gable's managers. I think they've done a fantastic job. They've put him in some very risky situations. I mean, Gable had a fight over the weekend where he touched a guy. I mean, it was a death touch. He touched a guy with a jab, with a left jab. Other people are calling it a hook. Fine. Whether he hooked him or jabbed him, it was with his lead hand, which traditionally speaking does not generate that much power. Lights were out. Then he's so quick, he hits the guy, he comes in underneath him, scoops him up in a double, and all while the guy is unconscious. Gable's just not certain. Gable then goes in celebration. He does the old, let me get up on the cage, which, by the way, is completely illegal, but let me go get up on the cage. He did this after his last fight, too, but it was in a ring. He never touched the ropes. He squatted and he jumped over the top rope and landed outside. It was the coolest part of the night. He did the same thing in celebration this weekend in Pettis' show with the cage. He jumps it without touching it. With one jump, he's now on the top of the cage. And he did this, by the way. I don't know what this means. I don't know what it meant. But it looked cool. And he got there with one jump, which looked cool. And before that, he threw one punch with a lead left hand, whether it was a jab or a hook, and it looked cool. I think Gable's a really interesting guy. I think he's in a really interesting spot. But I will be disappointed when the brakes get put on. Right? The more guys love to fight, the less that they do it. The less willing they are to do it. The more we recognize how good they are at it, the less willing they are to go out and to do that. So the fact that you can get 3 or 4 Gables in 5 or 6 weeks is very exciting. But if he goes to the UFC, those days are then going to be done. So I don't mind him on the open market. I know where he's going. I know how well he's going to do when he gets there. But if he's on the open market for right now, I like the idea of squeezing this juice, and I like the Contender Series idea, and I like a return to the Contender Series idea. I would like for 3 other guys to step forward that say they're the world's best heavyweights. I'd like to get a little mini tournament. You 2 over here and you 2 over here, and let's contest it in the Contender Series until there's a champion. I would like something like that. I like the way Gable is being managed. I don't think that you guys know who Gable was 4 or 5 weeks ago. Now I think that everybody's looking at him as the next hottest prospect in all of MMA. So to question his management, that surprises me. And I won't be part of that. I think that management team has done a phenomenal job.